This is Popular Front, a podcast focused on the niche details of modern warfare and underreported conflict with me, Jake Hanrahan. Today we're speaking to journalist Lotfullah Najat Fizaleh. He's an Afghan journalist. He is born, raised in Afghanistan. He lives there. He's going to be speaking to us about what's going on the ground. Obviously, the US troops have pulled out recently and the Taliban is sweeping across the country. A lot of the Afghan military are just abandoning their posts. The Taliban are becoming very powerful again. Lotfullah is going to talk to us all about that. If you like what we're doing, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/popularfront. Obviously, there's a very bad situation right now in Afghanistan. The Taliban is just sweeping across the country by the looks of it. Maybe just explain to us what is actually happening right now. Why is this, so rapid, the advance across the country?
Well, post withdrawal of the US forces, there has been a dramatic shift in the battlefield. The Taliban have taken more than 185 districts out of 420 plus or so. In the past couple of months, and that has been, I think, significant. The Taliban controlled only 15 to 20 districts in the past 20 years. So relatively speaking, this has been a huge shift. And that has created a lot of anxiety, a lot of concerns. A lot of concerns about the peace process and what's going to happen to the peace process. Are the Taliban really serious about it or not? Are they after a military takeover? And I think that has taken a lot of people by surprise, and that has also impacted the ongoing peace negotiations in Doha.
Yeah. And what's the status with the US troops now? They're completely gone, or are there some still there?
I think as the Pentagon says, the 95% are gone. So the remaining 5% would be probably a couple of hundreds. But they will be gone by the end of August. And then there will be a small number of troops based at the US Embassy for the embassy protection.
In Kabul?
In Kabul.
Right. And then nowhere else?
No. The US campaign has come to an end. This is an Afghan land, an Afghan war.
Why is it then that the Taliban are managing to sweep so quickly across Afghanistan? Because the US have been there for a long time now, as we know, over 10 years. They've been supposedly training up all the Afghan military. And it seems like, for want of a better term, they're kind of dropping like flies. Why is that?
I think that is the consequences of the withdrawal. And a lot of in a lot of these districts, people didn't fight. And in some districts, the district fell before the Taliban actually arrived. So I think this is a huge morale crisis that we're dealing with. But we all know this is temporary. This is something transitional. I don't think the Taliban will be able to hold all these places for a longer period of time. And just in the past couple of weeks, we have seen some districts retaken by the government. And the Taliban's takeover of districts has slowed down quite significantly. In some days, I think a month ago this time, they were taking more than 10 districts a day.
So when you say they take it, what do? They move in, obviously the military leave, the Afghan military are gone, or they're defeated, or they surrender. Then what happens? Are the Taliban actually trying to implement any long-term kind of positions there, or are they just taking over and kind of, leaving and going elsewhere? What's their position? Because obviously once the US troops leave, there's going to have to be something there. And a lot of people are saying it's going to look like Taliban will control most of the country.
Well, in most of these districts that the Taliban have taken over, the footprint of the government was already very, very limited to a few government buildings, officials, of course, a district governor, police chief, and I think around 100 security forces. And in some districts, they were military based. So you don't have an army base in every single district. So in some of these districts that there were army presence, I think some fought, most didn't. So they retreated. They came to the provincial capitals, which are under the government control. We have 34 provinces. So all 34 provincial capitals are under government control. So what the Taliban do after they take over these districts, I think they appoint a district governor, and they try to basically run the district. The government is still paying for the salaries of the teachers in the schools. I think the school money and all that is still, coming from the government, but the security structure, is changing.
Right, and what's life like for people actually on the ground now in places where the Taliban have taken over?
Very conflicting reports are coming, Jake, from throughout the country. In some places, we hear that there's a lot of executions happening. If you look at Ispin Boldak, a very key district on the border with Pakistan, which is also a border crossing, a quite significant one. And the Taliban are, of course, denying, but the fact that I think the governance umbrella, the authority is gone, is vanished, then a lot of ethnic feuds, a lot of it's a state of anarchy in some of these places. So a lot of these things do happen, but in some places, not much, to be very honest. So they become even more disconnected.
Right, and I was reading that in the places like, I think Bamiyan it is, in the mountainous areas, places like that, they were saying that there's some kind of, resistance from locals that are fighting back against the Taliban, not the Afghan military, but local militia. Do you think that's realistic? Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, and not just Bamiyan, which is in central, mountainous Afghanistan, but in many places, areas around Kabul, also in the north, in most provincial capitals in the north, which haven't fallen yet, is because of local resistance. And people have taken up arms and they fight the Taliban. So that is the Taliban's progress in terms of making territorial gains has not because that they have defeated the army and the police. It's because nobody fought, nobody stood up, nobody really resisted. So that's why they managed to take so much territory in such a short amount of time. But when resistance happens, then that's when the Taliban are really tested. So the Taliban tried in a couple of places to take over provincial capitals, which I believe they failed. Also, I think in one or two occasions there were some U.S. intervention, military intervention in terms of airstrikes as well.
Right. So whilst obviously, like you said, the kind of the sweeping gains that the Taliban have made have been mostly because, I guess, Afghan National Army and whatever just kind of leaving, just abandoning the place without fighting. This does look pretty bad for the US, right? Like over 10 years of war there, now they're leaving and the Taliban has pretty much, taken over half the country, whether that's by force or whatever. As a journalist that you've been reporting there this whole time, what do you make of all of this? Like, what do you think is going to happen? It seems to me like whatever the US did was a massive failure, but of course I'm not there. What do you make of it all?
Well, first on the U.S. departure, I think that was a big surprise.
Yeah.
This is such a vast country, mountainous, and some of these areas are quite remote. It takes you, given the Afghan terrain and geography, it takes you days to go from one provincial capital to a district, to particularly in places like Badakhshan, where they're not even basic roads there. So I think in most of these military postings and checkpoints and bases were supplied via air. So once the U.S. air support is gone, and that stopped. I think collapse of these government presence and government positioning and basis, that was inevitable. That was happening. The government in Kabul, with its very limited air capabilities, could not sustain such a vast presence throughout the country. So I think that is when we say that the current Taliban gain is because of the U.S. withdrawal. That's what exactly we mean. In addition to its psychological impact, what's going to happen next? I think. Well, that's a very difficult question, but I think all options are possible. All scenarios are possible. Civil war is possible. A political settlement is still possible. A new stalemate, a new sort of fighting between a government and the Taliban is what we're seeing. So whatever is going to happen in the next couple of months is going to be critical, is going to be ugly, is going to be decisive.
Yeah, and what has the government response been to this? Because right now, from the outside at least, it looks like the Taliban is a lot stronger than the government. What are they kind of said publicly about all of this?
Well, the Taliban, from what we know, they have been quite tight-lipped when it comes to peace talks. We had this very high-level delegation visiting Doha. Doha is where the peace talks are happening.
Yeah.
And the Taliban, after 2 days of talks, did not even agree to discuss some of the top issues like, constitutional changes, like a political roadmap, like, ceasefire and confidence building measures. So they demanded release of their prisoners. So if that is the mood of the Taliban when it comes to peace talks, basically they're asking for surrender, right? One would interpret it like this. But I think one should not be. One shouldn't come to the conclusion that there would be no resistance against the Taliban. Government is weak, yes, but the Taliban's enemy, the resistance force, is not just the government. Look at the country's ethnic composition. Look at the country's historic rivalries and issues. Look at the Taliban's past, where it was 20 years ago. So I think all of these will contribute to a new situation where the Taliban will face armed resistance all over the country. So that's why I think we all prefer peace, a political settlement. This war has no military solution. We all say this. Even the Taliban say this.
Yeah, I think if history shows anything, that's definitely true. It's just not going to end with that. In terms of any public support the Taliban might have, how high is that? Are they supported by many people, or are they just kind of bullying their way across the place?
I think surveys, if you look at surveys, of course, the recent survey that I've seen is probably from last year. So no public approval rating of the Taliban that I've seen is more than 10 to 15%. But things, of course, have changed a little bit, in the past year in favor of the Taliban. And now that they control, people's psychology also changes. But I think the people of Afghanistan is stuck between a rock and a hard place, meaning that the Taliban on one side, and then a government which largely fails to deliver services, largely fails to represent all Afghans. I think that's on the other side. So really the people are stuck in between. But when it comes to republic versus emirate, what kind of system people want, I think the republic's approval rating as a political system is very, very dominant, to something probably around, 70 to 80%.
It doesn't sound like a very good situation. Maybe just give us an idea briefly about the kind of ideology that the Taliban has, because over here in the West, we just hear the Taliban has done this, the Taliban has done that. And then we hear, people get confused with Al-Qaeda and all of this other stuff. Maybe just give us an idea of what the Taliban, in 2021, what do they actually believe in? What's their stance? Because obviously they're taking over areas. Eventually they're going to control some of them, or they are. What kind of ideology or system are they going to try and implement?
Well, the Taliban are the same. The Taliban are, same group, same name, even same individuals. When you go to Doha, I've been there a couple of times. You see the people who were Taliban ministers and senior officials 20 years ago when they were executing women at the stadium, when they were burning trees in northern Kabul and vineyards in northern Kabul, when they were executing in big numbers of minorities in central Afghanistan. So some of these people, I think, are still in the ranks of Taliban, and we hope that they've changed. We haven't seen much. They're saying that they don't want all of the power. They're saying that they don't want they don't want the country to harm other countries. They don't want Afghanistan to turn into a place where all the international terrorists will be based here. But what are the assurances? How can you verify that? I think that is a very critical question. So the Taliban, as a religious group, predominantly coming from one part of Afghanistan, is trying to influence or impose a specific lifestyle upon this very diverse country. I think that will not sustain. That is not manageable. Unless you really change, your outlook.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of people outside of Afghanistan don't seem to realize that it's one of the most ethnically, religiously, culturally diverse places on the planet. And they just see, Taliban have taken over, especially these so-called anti-imperialists. You see them online kind of in the West, even cheering on the Taliban. It's madness, just because obviously now the US is gone or whatever. But yeah, I think people miss that a lot, that it is, so diverse and so mixed. What is the situation with the Turks? I've heard that there are Turkish forces still there. I saw the Taliban saying, they want the Turkish forces to leave. How serious is that an issue?
But Jake, on the diversity, very briefly.
Yeah.
Afghanistan. I mean, that's also our beauty, right?
Exactly.
That's also the strength of this country. It's just a matter of how you find the formula to live in a diverse society peacefully, in harmony. I think Afghanistan's diversity is such a huge plus. So that's one thing. On the Turks, I think the Turks have made a deal with NATO and the Americans to maintain security of the airport. The airport is important because worst case, all embassies need to operate here, and then they should be able to leave. And also for the day-to-day operations, they need a functioning airport. So and for that, they need a security guaranteed at the Kabul airport. And for that reason, I think that there's going to be Turkish, I can't say Turkish military, but there's going to be Turkish security forces, private. There are a lot of rumors about it, that they are bringing Syrians or militias or security companies. So we don't know whether they're going to really keep Turkish troops here. So that will be the responsibility of Turkey, and the Turkey will be paid by NATO and the US, from what we know, for that.
Yeah, strange situation. I imagine they might end up in some kind of conflict eventually. What's the situation like for you? Obviously, you live there. Your news media, your company is all independent, and obviously the Taliban. I've seen it already. They've been executing journalists. They've even executed a comedian recently. Like, what is the situation for you? Are you guys worried? Like, it doesn't seem good if they do sweep across the country.
Well, media is very strong in Afghanistan. We have the freest media in the entire region, compared with any of Afghanistan's immediate neighbors, whether it's Iran or Pakistan or Central Asia or China, but also I think in the larger periphery. So Afghanistan is very lucky to have a very strong press, but also Afghanistan is one of the deadliest countries for journalists. So we lose roughly around a dozen journalists a year in the past couple of years. So that's very, very alarming. Now with the peace process and the recent, I think the recent Taliban offensive, that has created more concerns, not just about how are we going to deal with the Taliban, but how are we going to, maintain or keep what we have achieved in the past 20 years. So at Tolo, working at Tolo, which at Tolo News, we have the largest newsroom, a news operation in the country, based throughout Afghanistan. Reports coming from across Afghanistan every day. Unfortunately, a lot of it is about conflict and war. So we're here with our families, and this is not just our job, but this is also our life. So we are worried, and we are thinking about how can we all survive. And I'm quite confident that the country has changed in the past 20 years. Society has changed. We're one of the youngest populations in the world. I think the median age is 18. 2/3 of Afghans are under 25. And they barely remember the Taliban regime 20 years ago, 21 years ago. So that social transformation cannot be underestimated.
Yeah, and how does that affect the culture, would you say?
It affects culture, of course. I mean, every generation brings their own set of cultural values, and I think the country is way more liberal and modern, and more, I think, exposed to the world than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. There are 4 or 5 flights to places like Dubai or Delhi every day from Kabul, and we have direct flights from places like Host Province to Dubai. I think a couple of times a week. So a direct flight from Herat to Dubai, from Mazar to Istanbul. So this is a country that you're dealing with, and people are engaging, and this is not what we had at any time in our history.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Would you say then, obviously a lot of people are not particularly happy that the Taliban are sweeping across the country, but would you say people are generally happy that America are leaving, or not? Like, what's the kind of feeling around that?
Well, Americans were going to leave one day anyway. I'm not in a position to sort of come to numbers, right? But I think the American departure was a very big surprise, and it's costing our achievements and the morale. I think the timing could have been managed well and better.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think people feel perhaps betrayed then by the US that they're just pulling out like this?
I think the people, especially in the urban areas, they're paying the price of the US departure.
Yeah, it seems like it now. We're seeing it every day in updates. Okay, mate. Is there anything else you want to mention before we go?
All good.
All right, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was Lotfullah Najat Fizada. You can follow him on Twitter at LNAJAFIZADA. He's the head of Tolo News. Check them out. They're Afghanistan's first 24-hour news and current affairs television network. What they're doing is very important. Definitely do see Tolo News. Look for them. Watch what they're doing. If you like what we're doing, consider supporting us at patreon.com/popularfront. You will get lots of extras there, bonus episodes, episodes early, audio, narrated articles, the whole series, Too Cool for J School. There's loads of stuff there. Definitely check us out. We do not accept any corporate sponsorship. So the way we make money is via the Patreon, via merchandise, via special projects. So yeah, patreon.com/popularfront, or if you prefer, you can go to www.popularfront.co/support. There are different ways you can support us there. One-time donations, Bitcoin, or you can inquire about possible investment, so long as you're not like a Patrick Bateman psychopath type. Yeah. Thank you to our sponsors this episode. This episode is sponsored by Oracle Coffee Shop in Portland, Oregon, USA. They're an independent coffee business selling only fair trade products. See them at 3875 Southwest Bond Avenue 97239. Tell them that Popular Front sent you. The episode is also sponsored by Grindcore House, a pair of independent coffee shops in Philadelphia, USA. One in South, one in West. Find them on socials at Grindcore House. The episode is also sponsored by Propagandopolis, an outlet selling and writing about historical conflict propaganda from around the world. Buy prints at propagandopolis.com. Use the promo code PopularFront10 for 10% off. By the way, by the time this podcast episode goes out, we will have a range up ourselves. So Popular Front in collaboration with Propagandopolis, you'll be able to see it. There's 4, I believe, prints all related to Popular Front that you can buy from Propagandopolis. So that is PROPAGANDOPOLIS.com. Just think propaganda, but it sounds Greek. Propagandopolis.com. There should be the Popular Front series up there by the time you hear this episode. If you want to find us on social media, Twitter at PopularFrontCO, Instagram at popular.front, or the backup at popularfront_. If you want to follow me on anything, it's just at Jake_Hanrahan, HANRAHAN. Music. Oh yeah, also follow us on YouTube as well. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/popularfront. I am slowly getting all of the backlog of podcast episodes up onto the YouTube as well, but obviously that takes a lot of time, so just bear with me. But that is all there, youtube.com/popularfront. Or I think I've got the domain popularfront.tv, and I think that goes straight to the YouTube. Anyway, yeah, try that. Music in this episode, the intro was by an artist called Home, and the outro, as always, was by Sam Black. Check his music out at samblackpf.com. Thank you very much to the following higher tier Patreons. Thank you. Without you, this would not keep moving. Thank you to Tommy Pietri, James Leons, Kate, Ellen, Dan Ross, Thumper, Lisa Milgram, Lupita Valens, Bradley Davies, Brendan Crave, Pete Hesher, RX, A. Nicole, Travis Lieberman, Cherry, Ben Marshall, Dallas Dunn, LD50 Seattle, MJ, Meredith Waters, Adam H, Larson 8669, Carante, Bjorn Kirsten, Diamondstein, Jacob, Michael O'Connor, Zach Picard, Todd Cravens, Alexander, Nicholas Butter, Ron Swanson, JD, Jarv, Ian Froese, James Colley, Tynan Daly, Michael Akakan, Ethan, Fitzmadrid, Ed Coulthard, Clayton Taylor, Mike Barone, Ben, Liam Williams, Chris Cusimano, Degenerate Zero Alpha, George Arani, DR, Trey Nance. I'm doing them fast today, rapid, because it's hot as fuck in here. I want to open the window again. Amy R, Rubicon, Frank Austin, Amelia Me, Noah Ease, Christina Rivetti, Freya Northman, Ali Hunter, Moody Al-Rashid, Bill Wilson, Andrew Hurley, Vida Provost, Brian McLaughlin, Tom Lochrin, Young Wasabi, Tony Bin, Adam Bergsnyder, JL, Stephen Davila, Anthony Kabarek, Dan Dunham, Fletcher Tate, Chad Walker, Diana Gorvanek, Lawrence Abrahams, Peter McCormick from What Bitcoin Did, Axel Iverson, Christopher Martin, Ryan Sandercock, and Moritz Zumbel. Thank you all so much. Like I said, without you, this would not be possible.